The night air hung heavy over Bitterbridge, fragrant with horse sweat and crushed meadow flowers, while the twin encampments of Baratheon brothers shifted like two living beasts, forced at last to share a pen. Firelight jumped across armor and pavilion cloth. Renly's rose-green silks and golden antlers stitched in shimmering thread. Stannis' austere black banners bearing the crowned stag and a red heart. Between color and shadow stalked the weary ghosts of 770 years of Baratheon pride. But they had been banished, if only for this one crucial hour, by a single parchment. Davos Seaworth still felt the wax warm against his palm, though the seal had been broken 3 bells earlier. He kept the crumpled scroll inside his loose sleeve as a talisman. Renly of House Baratheon offers sword and fealty to Stannis of House Baratheon, true king of Westeros. Upon the following terms, it had required 3 nights of whispered counsels, 2 crashed goblets, and 1 startling clap of laughter from Lord Renly, sharp enough to silence even Sir Loras, before ink finally stained vellum. Yet here it was, proof wrought in Stannis' cramped signature and Renly's bold sweep that brother had not turned on brother after all. And so Davos walked between the camps, lantern high, searching for a bit of quiet, while the captains settled precedence of command. The moon rode like a slim scythe over the river, and somewhere in the lavish quarter, Renly's musicians had begun a reel, clumsy fingers plucking at harps gone soft with dew. Davos preferred the salt stink of Blackwater Bay to all this perfumed intrigue, but the sea was many leagues away. Soon, he reminded himself, soon Stannis will break the gates of King's Landing, and the tides will carry his ships right up the mud gate. The old knight crossed a line where trampled grass gave way to churned mud. Ahead, 2 voices argued in low tones, grown men striving for calm, and Davos halted beneath a willow. Through its curtain of branches he saw them, King Stannis, tall and gaunt in boiled leather brigandine, and Sir Renly in a forest green cloak that caught sparks of firelight like emeralds. They stood near a brazier whose coals glowed sullen red. "You will ride on the left," Stannis was saying, words clipped as a master at arms counting blows. "The Reach levies know your face. They must see it." Renly's mouth curved, half indulgent, half exasperate. "They adore my face, brother. I swear they'd follow it off a cliff if it only smiled at them first." They teasing lilt, but underneath it Davos heard steel. Renly wanted his men alive, not dashed upon Lannister pikes. "We will not test their devotion with folly," Stannis replied. "When we reach the capital, we form a crescent on the King's Road. My center will advance by foot." Renly held up a hand, rings flashing. "Center, left. Where's the right? You've a hole big enough to ride a warhorse through." "Sir Edric Storm commands the right," Stannis said. "You're bastard." Renly's brows leapt. 100 seasoned lords in this host, and you give a wing to a boy of, what, 15? 8 Tunton, Stannis snapped. "And near grown. He'll hold." Renly exhaled, shaking dark curls from his brow. "Tell me, Stannis, do you trust anyone born of lawful bed?" The jest flitted between them like an insolent sparrow. After a breath, Renly's shoulders lifted in surrender. "Very well, your plan stands. But if Sir Edric wavers, the Rainbow Guard will wheel to shore up the flank." Stannis' face did not soften, yet a muscle unclenched in his neck. "Agreed." In the stillness that followed, Davos glimpsed what Maester Cresson once called the Storm's Eye. A fragile calm hidden in the heart of their shared upbringing, atop storms and battlements. How many times had these two stood back to back against imaginary enemies? Davos almost smiled, until Renly shifted and candle glow silvered the velvet of his deep green cloak. For a heartbeat the fabric shimmered like a pond disturbed, and the shadow cast upon the grass behind him stretched long and antlered. "Enough talk," Renly declared. "Tomorrow we ride, tonight we drink." He clapped Stannis' arm, then strode off toward laughter and music, cloak swirling. Stannis watched him go, jaw working. "Sir Davos," he said without turning. "My king." Davos stepped forward, willow leaves brushing his shoulder. "Have the captains finished their wrangling?" "Near enough. Lord Tarley insists a vanguard fly his colors beside yours. Sir Roland Storm claims precedence for the bastard boys, and Sir Courtenay Penrose." "Penrose can choke on his own sigil," Stannis said. "Bring me the list at dawn. We march at sunrise." His gaze followed Renly's retreating form. 5,000 knights seduced by silks and pageantry. "I pray the city walls will be as dazzled." Davos lowered his lantern. 5,000 knights may win hearts before they win battles, sire. The small folk look for bright banners, then let Renly's banners flutter. Stannis' voice roughened. "But the Iron Throne is mine by right. I will not barter justice for cheers." A log shifted in the brazier, embers leaping into sparks. One landed on the cuff of Stannis' glove, a pinprick of orange against black. He pinched it out with 2 fingers. "Sire," Davos ventured, "when we reach the walls there will be wildfire." He tasted ash on his tongue. "Lord Tyrell's spies say the Alchemist's Guild has casks stockpiled beneath the city. If Sir Jaime is returned to the Lannisters, the Queen? Nay. The Queen cares for naught but her own brood," Stannis muttered. "We sever the head, the vipers scatter." Davos stiffened. "You trust the spider." "I trust his fear," Stannis answered. "He fears the Boy King will burn half the realm to cinders. And he fears what lies beyond the narrow sea, wings and fire reborn." A bleak smile touched his lips. "Fear is the coin we spend oftenest in these days." The brazier cracked again. Stannis shook off his thoughts. "Rest, Davos. I will find the Red Woman." The name slid between them like an unsheathed blade. Melisandre Vashai had arrived but 6 hours before, her ruby collar throbbing with inner fire, and the dark young smuggler boys unloading after wagon of strange glass spheres. She spoke little save to warn Stannis that shadows gather wherever false kings wear crown. "Your brother's light burns bright," she had whispered to Renly in greeting. "Yet bright flames cast long shadows." Davos bowed. "As you command, sire." He turned toward the quieter encampments of the Stormland's foot, leaving Stannis to the brazier and the bitter stew of his own resolve. Dawn came thin and gray, drawing a sigh from every soldier's lungs. Horns sounded, Renly's silver call, and Stannis' harsher note, and 2 mighty hosts began to move as one at last. The king's road shuddered beneath 40,000 boots, hooves, and wagon wheels. Banner poles wagged like stalks of wheat in military fields. The golden rose of Highgarden, the fiery Heartstag, the proud huntsman of Hornwood, the crossed keys of Florent, and above them all 2 brotherly stags, one crowned, one antlered, running abreast upon the morning wind. Catelyn Stark rode in silence near the center column, flanked by Brienne of Tarth, whose blue cloak yet bore Renly's sigil. She had come to Bitterbridge a supplicant of peace, and peace, however thin, had been hammered into alliance. Still, her heart thudded with misgiving. The young wolf's victories in the Riverlands felt distant here. Every mile stomped by Baratheon boots was a mile closer to Lannister wrath. Yet what choice remained? Should Stannis take the capital, her daughters might be freed, and if he failed, Tywin's host would tear the realm like a lion clawing a carcass. Catelyn's mare sidestepped as a cart rattled past, piled high with ramshackle siege ladders. Drifted dust funneled into her veil. She coughed, then nudged closer to Brienne. "Tell me, Sarah," she murmured, "have you spoken with Lord Renly this morn?" Brienne's eyes stayed fixed ahead. His Grace inspected the columns at first light. He was, she groped for the word, resolute. Resolute, Caitlin echoed, tasting layers behind it. Grief for the lost crown, pride in the Green Riders thundering at his command, a younger brother's determination to impress the elder who had never once applauded him. She almost pitied Renly. Almost. At midday, they reached the ruins of Sauzon, torched a year past by Gregor Clegane. Charcoal beams jutted like black ribs from the earth, and beneath them half-buried toys glinted in the dust. The column slowed as men crossed the ashfield. No birds sang. Melisandre rode at Stannis' side, scarlet gowns billowing, ruby pulsing. She whispered as they passed the charred husk of a sept. "See how the seven fall before the one." Her dark eyes never blinked. By nightfall, they camped beside the rippling wheat of tendering lands. Beyond those fields the Kingswood began, and beyond the trees lay the glittering artery of the Blackwater Rush. Flickers of Lannister torches patrolled the far bank. But the enemy did not yet know Baratheon thunder was on the march. Scouts swore the Gold Cloaks had stationed no outriders this deep. Inside King's Landing the small folk whispered of Renly's vanity wars and Stannis' shadow ships. Yet few believed two quarrelsome brothers would ever join hands. Inside the command pavilion, Renly studied a crude charcoal map, one hand lazy on the pommel of his hunting knife. 4 days to the city if the wagons keep pace, he said. 2, if we abandon them and press the knights ahead. Stannis shook his head. We arrive together, or not at all. He frowned at the parchment. Sir Courtenay's scouts claim the King's Gate is undermanned. If our rams strike at first light. Rams? Renly laughed. The small folk will swing the gates wide when they glimpse flowers in my helm. Half the city hungers for a tourney. Give them spectacle, and they'll crown us with rose petals. Stannis' hand slammed upon the table. This is war, not a Mage Day revel, and hearts win wars. Renly shot back, but he gentled the words. Listen, brother, you wield fear like a cudgel. I wield love like a lance. Together we are invincible. Let me ride the vanguard into Flea Bottom. I'll have music behind me, wagons of bread ahead. While they cheer, your fleet closes the river. By dusk, the Red Keep will be ours. No, you don't tell me. Stannis stared, jaw working. Davos watched, waiting for the lash of temper. Instead, Stannis inhaled through his nose and let it out slow. Very well, he said at last. Take your songs, but one misstep, one flutter of a Lannister banner above those walls, and my archers will darken the sky. Renly grinned like a boy granted his dearest wish. You'll see, brother. By the morrow's morrow they'll sing of the Baratheons reborn. See that they do, Stannis replied. He gestured sharply, and Renly left whistling. Only after the tenty flap fell did Stannis sag onto a stool. Songs, he muttered. Songs rot a man's resolve. Davos laid a hand on the map, tracing the serpentine Blackwater. Your Grace, a river can drown the singer and the stoic alike if misjudged. Yet Renly's plan may strike swifter than rams. Eh? Stannis rubbed his brow. But wildfire cares not for swiftness. If Tyrion Lannister unleashes it upon the crowds. He shook his head. Pray the alchemists are as incompetent as rumor claims. Outside, thunder grumbled distant, though the sky remained clear. Davos felt it in his bones, like the drum of oars on an empty sea. They broke camp under a bruised pre-dawn sky, clouds skimming low, wind cold enough to gnaw fingers. Melisandre raised her arms from a hillock crowned by a dead tree, chanting in High Valyrian. Flames danced inside her ruby as if caged. Some men crossed themselves, others spat, yet none could deny the sudden warmth that billowed over the host, or the way the eastern horizon blushed at her words, as though dawn itself obeyed her summons. 2 days' hard march brought them to the fringes of the Kingswood. There the path narrowed, overgrown by thorn and ivy, forcing the army into a long serpent shape. Renly's outriders swept ahead, antler helms winking between branches. Scouts returned with tales of deer herds scattering and bandit camps abandoned. No gold cloaks barred their way. That night, a silver sliver of moon hung low, and wolves howled somewhere in the blackness. In Stannis' pavilion, strategy gave way to quiet dread. Maester Pylos unrolled Raven's scrolls bearing fresh tidings. Tywin Lannister still rode in the west, but Sir Adam Marbrand had left Harrenhal with 2,000 horse, path uncertain. Roose Bolton harried the King's Road farther north, and across the sea, Daenerys Targaryen marched south with Dothraki and dragons. Or so said one ragged letter, ink-blotched, words half-burned. Stannis read it twice, eyes narrowing. "A realm of false kings," he murmured. "And now a queen hatched from old fire." Melisandre stepped from shadows. The dawn is darkest before it sets ablaze the world. Her gaze burned across Davos, lingered on Stannis. Only one chosen by the Lord of Light can hold the darkness at bay. Stannis' face hardened. "And that is me. Look to your own heart, my king." Her voice was silk sliding over sword steel. "And listen for the beat of the true night." Later, as candles guttered, Stannis dismissed all but Davos. The tent felt smaller now, the canvas smelling of damp wool and strained leather. "You know these lands," Stannis said. "Aye, from my smuggling days," Davos answered. "Then you'll slip ahead with 5 picked men, find the ferrymen of the Blackwater, offer gold, pardon, whatever buys silence. We need skiffs ready to bear troops across before the Lion knows we stand at his door." Davos' heart quickened. "And if they will not take our coin, take their boats," Stannis said, "but leave them alive if you can. We'll need oars when the bay turns green with hellfire. Jan Elsh could be the pin ice." Dawn breached dull and clammy when Davos slid his skiff onto the Blackwater's inky mirror. Behind, the Kingswood rustled with 11,000 anxious souls. Ahead, King's Landing crouched upon its hills like a half-woken dragon, smoky breath, swirling above chimneys. The air stank of tanneries and river rot. Davos pulled at the oars, knuckles whitening. A fog clung low, muffling splash and creak. Half a league downstream, the mud gate jutted, squat and ugly, flanked by timber docklands. Beyond it rose the confusion of the city. Slanted rooftops, sept spires, the blunt fist of the great sept of Balor, and highest of all the Red Keep looming crimson in the dawn like a wound that would not clot. "Hold," whispered a voice. Salar the Tall dipped his blade over the gunwale. A patrol of city watch drifted by in a pitch-smelling barge. They wore half-AG suits of mismatched mail, eyes rimmed red. Davos' skiff slid under the shadow of a dead galley hauled for repairs, barnacles festooning its hull. The gold cloaks passed without cry. A gull screamed overhead as they grounded on a mudbank strewn with fish. Fisher huts squatted along the shore, windows dark. Davos men crept door to door. Coin changed hands. Rumors flew faster than ravens. The Queen's pyromancers toiled night and day. King Joffrey practiced crossbow shots from ramparts. Tyrion Lannister drafted chains thicker than an auroch's neck. But at mention of bread Renly's wagons would bring, eyes brightened. The ferrymen agreed to readiness at dusk, 8 skiffs hidden under reed mats. Davos returned before noon to find the host arrayed upon a low ridge. Renly rode before them in green gold splendor, helm crowned with golden antlers, casting dappled light across his cheek. Trumpets blared. He raised a hand and hush flowed like water through the ranks. Brothers of the storm, sons of the reach, swords of Westeros. His voice rolled vast upon the open plain. Today we ride not as Renly's men or Stannis men, but as Baratheon men, united beneath the stad's proud crown. We ride to end the terror of the false beast upon the throne. We ride for justice, for peace, for summer songs, sung without fear of lion claws. We ride, my friends, for the realm itself. Naad, Shuri, Vindeline. A roar answered, swelling huge, shaking birds from trees. Renly wheeled his stallion and led the Rainbow Guard forward, capes flaring, lances angled skyward like painted lightning. Behind, 11,000 mounted knights thundered. Davos felt the ground tremble beneath his boots. On the ridge, Stannis watched, expression unreadable save for a flicker at the corner of his eye. Envy, perhaps, or sadness at the easy love his brother commanded. He lifted one mailed hand. Drums beat. The footmen surged, shields overlapping, spears bristling. The Stormlander banners leaned into the wind. Saffron, Estamont sea turtles, red wyverns of Caron, black moons of Dondarrion. Above them all, the crowned stag raced, antlers raking the sky. They left the Kingswood behind as the sun reached its zenith. Dust rose in towering plumes, visible even from the city walls. A murmur spread through King's Landing. They come. Gods help us, they come. Small folk crowded rooftops, squinting west. Mummers on street corners fabricated songs of Renly's gleaming teeth and Stannis iron will before the first hoof struck cobblestone. Fear walked the alleys, cloaked in whispers of wildfire. Within the Red Keep, Tyrion Lannister limped along the serpentine steps, message scroll clenched. 2 kings, he muttered, and both Baratheons. 7 hells weren't enough, now we need 2 more. He thrust into the small council chamber, where Cersei paced like a caged lioness. Grand Maester Pycelle dozed. Lord Varys fluttered his hands. Mother, Tyrion said, the reports are true. Renly's banners fly beneath Stannis. He tossed the parchment onto the table. Our foes multiply like fleas. Cersei's eyes gleamed green and furious. We have wildfire. Let them burn. Wildfire does not choose its feast. Varys warned softly. Tyrion rubbed aching temples. We have one chance. Keep them outside the walls. If they breach, the city riots. Bread stores are low, waterfouled, tempers hot. He glanced at the eunuch. How fares our chain? Varys spread plump fingers. The smiths labor day and night. Sir Jacelyn Bywater marches them with clubs. Smashing knees speeds the hammer, Tyrion said, then huffed. But chain or no, if Renly buys the small folks' hearts first. He trailed off. Cersei's lips curled. Then we cut the hearts from their chests. Tyrion saw the wildfire in her gaze and felt colder than the wall. Ellie. At dusk, the black water mirrored blood and copper. Renly's vanguard approached the riverbank in parade formation. Knights 3 abreast, barded chargers draped in cloth-hoof gold. Musicians upon painted wagons struck lutes and hammered drums. Squires tossed loaves warm from field ovens into the thronging crowds who poured from city gates despite watchmen's cries. Children scrambled in the dust, clutching bread like treasure. Women wept to see handsome Sir Loras blow a kiss from his saddle. Upon the parapets, gold cloaks hesitated, lowering crossbows. The hush of awe rolled upward. Renly reined atop a slight rise, removed his antlered helm, and shook out dark hair shining with sweat. People of King's Landing, he called. I am Renly Baratheon, brother to your good King Stannis, rightful heir of our beloved Robert. We come not to rape your city nor plunder your homes. We come to set you free from Lannister lies. He raised a hand and wheat flour drifted from hidden pouches, fluttering white like summer snowflakes. Cheers burst, ragged at first, then swelling. A baker flung open his shutters, scattering stale rolls upon passing soldiers. The city watch captain at the King's Gate gnawed his mustache, weighing treason against pay. When Renly's standard-bearer advanced 10 paces, the gate captain stepped aside. But before the portcullis could rise, a shuddering boom cracked the air. Renly's charger reared, ears flat. Trumpets blared from the Red Keep. Bells screamed discordant warnings. Across the river, STANNIS' fleet, 200 masted warships, rounded the bend like a living wall. Their black sails billowed, painted with the fiery heart stag. Oars churned, white froth curling at bows. On the far bank, siege rams trundled toward the King's Gate, pushed by barons of the Stormlands. STANNIS himself, gaunt as winter, rode behind, sword unsheathed, visor lowered. Melisandre rode beside him on a midnight mare whose eyes glowed red in torchlight. The sight chilled Renly's host even as the small folk cheered louder for bread and hope. But atop Maegor's holdfast a different jest unraveled. Cersei Lannister ordered the alchemist's pyres lit. Green fumes spiraled into the sky. Tyrion cursed as candlelight shimmered in countless jars of wildfire, row on row along the parapets, and within barges hidden under canvas on the river. "Fools," he muttered, racing to halt them. "Too soon, you blind dolts, too soon." Downriver, Davos Seaworth guided his skiff between anchored hulks. Chain links thicker than a man's thigh lay coiled on barges, waiting to strangle the Blackwater when hoisted. Davos saw crews scramble even now to attach hooks. He hissed at Salor, "Cut those ropes." But men upon deck spotted them. Quarrels whistled. One bolt took Salor in the throat. Davos plunged overboard as lantern oil splashed, flaming on contact with water slicked by wildfire leaks. The river roared green, heat searing his beard. He surfaced choking to see the fleet approach the boom chain. "If the fire spreads before we raise anchor," Davos kicked hard, stroking toward Stannis' flagship Fury. Above, sailors hauled at ropes, unaware of the drifting slick. A shout arced across the waves. "Wildfire! Astern!" Then night turned sun-bright green. A barge exploded, timbers hurled skyward like javelin. Men screamed, flesh aflame. Columns of emerald fire climbed 60 feet, painting the city walls ghostly. Wind blew the inferno riverward in curling veils. Onshore crowds panicked. Bread loaves became cudgels. Gold cloaks forced gates shut, trapping small folk between renown and ruin. Renly shouted commands, but smoke muffled words. His musicians scattered, horses reared. Loras Tyrell dragged his king behind a supply cart just as a rain of burning pitchstones catapulted from the ramparts. Stannis saw the firestorm blossom. "Dot. Signal retreat across water," he barked. But oars had bitten already. Momentum carried first ranks into the spreading green sea. Watching from the poop deck, he clenched the rail until knuckles split. "Row, row, curse you!" Then, through the din, a lone horn sounded, from between the fleet and chain. A flat-bottomed ferry bearing 8 cloaked figures glided. Davos sights the tiller, throat raw. "Drop sail," he bellowed. "Cut anchor." His men hacked lines. The Fury lurched free, cresting a wave of black water turned molten jade. Davos ferry slid past, smoke curling from its tarred hull. The first of the wildfire slicks kissed a galley named Faithful. Flames raced up its oiled sides. The crew shrieked. Yardarms cracked. Sailcloth whooshed into sudden torch. And yet, amidst hellish glare, Davos saw a shape standing upon Faithful's prow. A woman in scarlet, arms flung wide, ruby blazing like a second sun. Wind tore her gowns, but still she stood, and where the fire licked at the timber beneath her feet, it seemed to recoil, as if tasting something fouler still. He stared, half-drowned, until oars dragged him onward. Night stretched long upon the realm of men. On the Trident, Arya Stark dreamed of wolves crying green flame. In River Run, Edmure stood at rampart watching constellations vanish beneath distant smoke. At Dragonstone, the stone dragons on the seaward walls shivered, or so the serving girls swore come morning. And far away, beyond the narrow sea, Daenerys Targaryen woke beneath a torn tent to find Drogon crouched, black eyes reflecting a phantom blaze the horizon had not yet shown. Yet for those at the Blackwater, there was no dream. There was only green fire, and the screams of men learning how water could burn. Continue. Yiwum, ya. Dawn limped over the Blackwater like a wounded thing, pink and jaundiced, its first light muddied by a haze of burned pitch and drifting ash. The stench of wildfire still hung heavy, sweet and cloying, clinging to every scrap of cloth and every strand of hair so that a man could taste ruin in his spit. Gray-green smoke curled from half-sunken hulks mid-river. Their charred masts jutted at odd angles, as though some vast invisible hand had snapped them for sport. Gulls circled the wrecks and screeched, but nothing dared settle where the water hissed and bubbled with trapped pockets of alchemists' fire. Davos Seaworth hauled himself onto the scarred deck of Fury minutes after sunrise, coughing green-tinted phlegm that stung his cracked lips. His clothes dripped river water and stink, his once white cloak mottled black. Sailors raised him bodily over the rail while the flagship's surgeon shouted for clear space. Davos shoved the hands away. "The king," he rasped, blinking smoke from red-rimmed eyes. Below, a boatswain barked, bleeding from the brow, but alive. Davos staggered toward the companionway without waiting for permission. Each step throbbed in his calves where hidden splinters had lodged. The decks were slick with a mixture of tar, sweat, and clotted blood. He found Stannis in the small cabin aft, sitting shirtless on a stool while Maester Pylus stitched a 4-inch gash along his hairline. Ruby droplets pattered into a pewter basin already half full. Melisandre stood behind the Maester, face calm, palms hovering inches from Stannis' shoulders as though cupping invisible flames. Stannis never flinched. His eyes cut to Davos the instant he crossed the threshold. "Report." The word came out thick, tongue tasting iron. "Chains been fastened, sire." Davos wheezed, breath ragged. "Half our ships are stuck upriver, half down. Wildfire took 15 at least. More still burn. And a ferryman. With the 7 now." Davos swallowed. "But the skiffs remain. We can move 2,000 men across under cover of darkness if the chain holds their attention." Pylos knotted the final stitch. Stannis rose before the Maester could bandage him. "It will hold their terror, not their eyes. The imp is no fool. He means to trap my fleet between chain and fire." His voice thickened on the last word. "One misstep yesterday, and my brother's foolery would have doomed us all." Melisandre's ruby flared, casting crimson halos on the cramped timbers. "A misstep averted by the Lord of Light," she intoned. "The flames devoured only those unworthy." Davos stared at her with salt bloodshot eyes. "Good men burned, my lady." "Only men," she answered. "Their purpose is fulfilled in their deaths." Stannis' brow furrowed, whether in agreement or exhaustion Davos could not tell. "We strike tonight," the king declared. "If Renly still holds the mudbanks, we use his wagons, his catapults, his damned flowered banners if they'll fetch us across." Davos. "Get me Tarly, Karen, Brienne of Tarth. If she still draws breath, they'll command the first wave. And send a crow to Varys. Tell the spider that delay births betrayal." "Aye, sire." Davos hesitated. "And your brother?" "My brother will ride or he will watch from his silken tent. Either way, the city falls." Stannis turned to Melisandre. "Keep the men from fear. And keep yours eyes on the queen. One spark from her alchemists, and the realm kindles." Melisandre inclined her head. "The night is weary, but I am watchful." "Yam Dazan, Shim," See, Renly Baratheon had not slept. Instead, he paced his command pavilion while Sir Loras paced opposite in tightly coiled circles, both men pinned between sorrow and fury. 30 paces away, a triage tent groaned with the wounded. When certain screams rose too sharply, Renly's eyes twitched, but he did not turn. Brienne of Tarth stood at the tent flap, resolute and blood-spattered, her blue cloak burned away at the hem, her hair matted with soot. "Stannis pushes tonight," Loras said, voice sharp. "I heard the fleet preparing even through the rowers' dirge. He'll hurl men onto the docks like pebbles from a child's sling. This time, the Queen will fling more than jars. She'll ignite the slums to stop him." "Then we strike first," Renly answered. "We still hold the hearts of the commons. I ride through Flea Bottom at dusk under parley flag, deliver bread and salve. When their bellies and wounds remember mercy, they'll swing the gates themselves." "Nani, Tauran, Shi." Loras's jaw clenched. "Bread against wildfire, hope against despair." Renly met his lover's eyes, saw hurt there, not for the plan, but for the scorched ruin Loras had pulled him from in the first blast. "I must give them something brighter than fear." "Give me leave, your grace," Brienne rumbled, stepping forward. "I'll escort you with half the Rainbow Guard. The gold cloaks won't dare loose quarrels while I stand before you." Renly's smile flickered. "Brave Brienne, ever our shield. But I'll need your sword at King's Gate when the horns sound. You stand with Tarth men beneath Stannis banners. Show those stoic fools how true courage gleams." "Nan, Kri." Her blue eyes darkened. "I swore to serve Renly Baratheon," she said softly. "If you charge alone, I do not mean to die," he interrupted. "I mean to win this city with laughter before tears drown it. But should I fall, Stannis must reign." Brienne's shoulders squared. "I will obey the Iron King." "Stannis, Brienne," Renly corrected, tone gentle but firm. "Not iron, true." Loras exhaled hard, anger cooling into grudging acceptance. "Then I ride at your flank." "No, you command the wagons. Bread first, then water, then salve." He laid a gauntleted hand upon Loras' chest. "If I am lost, they'll look to the Night of Flowers for life, not war." For a moment the pavilion held only their muffled breaths, tents whipping outside, distant cries of wounded. Then Loras drew Renly into an embrace that clanked with steel and broken promises. They parted without another word. Renly removed his crown of golden antlers, kissed it once, and pressed it into Brienne's calloused palm. "Guard this for me, sir." She closed fingers around polished metal, bowing her head. When she looked up again, Renly had gone, shadows swallowing green silk. Inside the Red Keep, Tyrion Lannister prowled the Queen's ballroom where casks of wildfire had been hurriedly stacked in flower-carved niches, once meant for dancers cooling wine. Much of the floor remained sticky with spilled resin and broken glass, but Tyrion ignored it, clutching a ledger and quill. Sir Jacelyn Bywater followed, helm beneath his arm, chainmail glinting emerald in torchlight. 2 pyromancers from the guild scurried behind, faces smudged lecherously green. 149 surviving pots, Tyrion counted aloud, plus 9 larger sotras of thickened substance. He scratched notes. "We've lost at least 50 to Renly's parade wagon fiasco, and another dozen to that god's cursed barge. Your alchemist brethren assured me wildfire is difficult to ignite by accident. A careless spark may birth dragons of heat," one guildsman protested. "Yes, you've said." Tyrion snapped the ledger shut. "Dragons are donkeys, 50 fewer now than dawn." He turned to Bywater. "If Stannis lands by night, he'll anchor where the chain cannot crush him, then scale the quay before the pots can be lobbed. We need archers atop every warehouse. Crossbows, spear throwers, javelins." Anything that keeps their ladders shaking. Bywater traced a scar over his cheek. The gold cloaks are restless, my lord. Many would sooner raise Baratheon banners than die for a boy king and a mad queen. Nadia. Yes, but not all. Tyrion tapped his quill against his teeth. Double the incentive. Promise triple pay and the right to loot any Baratheon baggage that breaches the gate. Promise them. He faltered as the chamber door swung open. Queen Cersei swept inside, gown of deep scarlet slashed with yellow satin. Her hair was pinned high, green eyes blazed hotter than the wildfire. Brother, she hissed, why does King Joffrey weep in his chambers while you count pots like an innkeep? Tyrion bowed mock low. 'Cause, dear sister, iron natures remain composed while children cry. She ignored the barb, stalking to the cast piles. Why aren't these aboard the river barges? The maester's lanterns say the wind turns east tonight. Perfect direction to blow fire into their sails. One lantern may lie, Tyrion murmured. The wind turns where it wills, and wildfire on a fickle breeze is death both ways. If a gust flares back into Flea Bottom, we burn our own gates open. Let them burn. Cersei's lips curved. Fire cleanses filth. Filth votes, Tyrion countered in its own fashion, with pitchforks and stones and knives tucked beneath rags. 1,000 peasants can overwhelm one lion if they believe fire is friend, not foe. Cersei's nostrils flared. I will not let Stannis plant his wooden stag atop my walls. He'll roast first. Tyrion saw the edge in her eyes, a glint that reminded him of their father's seat in the Hall of Heroes, cold and implacable. But Tywin tempered anger with calculation. Cersei whipped it into storms. You'd kill half a city to spite a brother, he said, not bothering to hide the horror. I'd kill 10 cities, she said, voice cool, to guard my son. The pyromancers shifted uneasily. Tyrion flicked Bywater a glance. The hardened commander tightened his jaw, silent but wary. Finally, Tyrion exhaled. We place half the casks in the Red Keep cellars, half at the Mudgate. Cersei's glare might have melted steel, yet she nodded slowly. Once, then swept out with her crimson skirts trailing sparks of temper. Bywater blew out a breath. 7, save us, he muttered. 7, Tyrion smiled thin. Pray to any who listen, sir. Tonight we'll need gods by the barrel. No, shall The chain across the Blackwater groaned under the labor of 30 smiths as dusk bled into full night. Each massive link glimmered in torchlight. Gangs of sweating men hauled at capstans fixed behind water-sodden pilings, ratchets clicking, inch by inch. The great iron snake lifted, breaching the river like a rising sea serpent. From ramparts above, watchers anchored ropes to counterweights, ready to drop should Stannis' sails breach the estuary. Tyrion stood upon the parapet with Bronn at his side, both wrapped in soot-dark cloaks. Wind cut across their faces, carrying the distant bray of horns. There, Bronn pointed. 3 pinpricks of flame bobbed mid-current, far beyond the chain. Skiffs ferrying men, their oar strokes muffled by wind. Your royal fleets come knocking. Tyrion's stomach tightened, but he kept his tone dry. Fetch the archers. Small targets sharpen nerves. Now, Bronn's grin flashed. He stalked off. Tyrion watched the skiffs vanish behind a burnt galley husk. On another night, he might have admired the stealth, rowing with only lanterns masked by wicker shades, but dread chewed his gut. One spark, one misjudged barrel, and wildfire turned river into pyre. Behind him, the city heaved. Bells clanged. Gold cloaks forced crowds inland. Renly's bread wagons had rolled at sunset, escorted by Loras Tyrell's bright shield wall. Old men wept to taste yeast again. Children chased crumbs. Renly himself parleyed at Flea Bottom crossroads, distributing barrels of ale from Storm's end cellars. The watchers on the walls had stared in hungry silence as the small folk cheered. Tyrion knew hearts changed in minutes where hunger lingered months. Now a hush fell over those lower streets, broken only by distant calls of Baratheon for king, and spontaneous prayers for an end to green fire. Somewhere a woman sang an old Stormlander lullaby. The notes drifted over the rooftops like a plea. Tyrion turned from the rampart. The lullaby faded beneath screams. Renly Baratheon knelt beside a boy no older than 9, binding strips of silk about the child's blistered paw. Above them, a tanner's shop leaned drunkenly where wildfire shockwaves had shaken its beams. The street lamp beside the door guttered, casting oily shadows. Loras poured water into a cracked wooden bowl. Renly dipped a cloth and dabbed gently at the lad's cheek, washing soot. "Will it hurt much longer?" the boy asked, voice quivering. Renly smiled, soft but sure. "Only until you think of something braver than pain. What's your name?" "Pay." "Sir Pat," Renly declared, tying the knot. "Bear your bandage like a knight's favor. Tomorrow you'll show it to friends. Tell them how you braved dragonfire." Pate sniffed, eyes wide. Truly." Renly stood and pressed a silver stag into the small, clean hand. "Now fetch bread for your mother before the gold cloaks snatch the cart." The boy darted off, hasty gratitude trailing. Loras wiped sweat from his brow. "We should pull back. The city watch grows thicker. Some glare like traitors waiting to choose bargains." Renly surveyed the alley. 50 wagons still lined the thoroughfare, Tyrell knights guarding each. 1,000 townsfolk at least milled, yet discipline held. They queued rather than stormed. Hope's first bloom, fragile as poppy petals. He set a hand on Loras' shoulder. "We hold an hour more. Let them carry stores inside the walls. When bread fills cellars, fear empties them." "My lord, listen." Brienne emerged from the gloom, helm under her arm, crown tucked into her belt. She nodded toward the harbor. Beyond burnt warehouses, a rumble shook through night air. Drums, deep and steady. "Stannis marches." Renly closed his eyes for one heartbeat. The drums thudded again, nearer, as though the earth had grown a second heartbeat. Slow and inexorable. "To your posts," he said. "Signal the gate, Captain. Keep the portcullis lifted until the last wagon crosses. Then shut fast, but do not bar. We'll meet Stannis at King's Gate." He mounted his chestnut destrier, antler helm clutched beneath his arm. Commons looked up, hushed. Renly raised one hand. "Carry food inside," he cried. "Eat and drink, for tomorrow dawns bright." The cheer answered, ragged but real. Renly pulled his cloak close, spurred down the alley, Loras and Brienne flanking. Shadowed faces parted before them. Torches rippled along balcony railings overhead. Drums echoed again, and under their measured thunder rang a new sound. The screech of chains drawn taut across river water. Stannis rode at the head of 8,000 foot and 2,000 horse, the standard of the crowned stag flapping above his helm. The wildfire haze blurred his stern features to any man behind him, but Davos, marching near the vanguard, saw each twitch of muscle along his jaw. Stannis gripped his reins as though the leather itself were a traitor. His wounded brow had been bound with linen, but crimson seeped through stitches. Melisandre rode close, unafraid of hostile stares. "The night bleeds," she said softly, "yet dawn answers." Stannis did not glance at her. Dawn must climb these walls by steel, not flame. Davos caught his breath at that. Curious words, given the Red Woman's doctrine. But there was no time to ponder. Scouts returned in twos, reporting Renly's breadline still within gates. The gold cloaks turned none away yet, though archers paced the parapets visibly tense. The host split according to plan. Tarlai's heavy foot wheeled left to the river gate. Karen and Estermont led light spears at the mud gate. Brian's storm guard advanced on King's Gate with oil-soaked ladders trundling behind. Zegarams shaped like roaring hounds rumbled forward, iron-laid maws ready to batter oak. The clatter drowned crickets, even the river's sigh faded. When they crested the low rise half a league from the walls, Stannis signaled halt. His captains formed a crescent around him. Torches flickered over grim visages. Courtnay Penrose, Lord Eldon Estermont, Sir Aemon Quai of the Rainbow Guard, now wearing the crown emblem in place of Renly's stag. Behind them, footmen shifted shields, murmuring prayers or curses. Stannis addressed them in voice carried by sudden hush. We march to end lies. The boy upon that throne is no king born of Robert, no heir of the realm. Ours is the lawful blood. We do not fight for coin or songs. We fight for justice. Hold the line, shield your brothers, and strike only when command comes. He paused, gaze sweeping. Should we fall, the realm falls to madness. The captains answered with low assent. Davos saw no flicker of doubt save perhaps in Penrose's eyes. He glanced toward the city as though seeing ghosts. Stannis wheeled his horse. Sound the horn. 5 blasts sounded, low, echoing. Ziga towers lurched. Banners dipped forward. And the Battle of King's Landing, fought between brothers united yet still divided by flame, began. Tyrion heard the horns and spat over the wall. Black-cloaked archers inched along the parapet beside him, bows strung, arrowheads gleaming green from wildfire residue. Across the river, the distant siege towers crawled like wheeled leviathans, splintering the hush. On the dockside piers, the chain's weight caused water to churn and gurgle. Every groan felt like fate tightening. Stand ready? Bywater barked. A horn answered. Baratheon, from within the city. Renly rode into view below, columns of Tyrell men behind. His voice lifted, too distant to parse, but Tyrion saw gold cloaks atop King's Gate freeze as Renly reigned beneath the portcullis. Somewhere a gate captain made a choice. Slowly, inexorably, the iron teeth clanked upward. Ron laughed, low and incredulous. Well, look at that. Your own gate's open, no rams required. Tyrion's quill snapped in his fist. Inform the queen, he muttered. No, wait. Grab every man you can trust. Hold the red keep foot by foot. Bronn's grin sharpened. Suits me. Always wanted strolls over silk carpets. Tyrion glanced upward. Thick clouds rolled, black underbellied, the promise of storm. He tasted copper on his tongue. The same metallic dread as the day he'd faced his father's contempt at Casterly Rock. He turned to Bywater. If gates fall, light no wildfire without my leave. The queen may scream, but obey me or hang. Bywater grim, cheesy, chain and fire, my lord. Tyrion left him, descending stone steps to the yard beyond. A stable boy rushed by clutching reins for 3 nervous palfreys. Ravens scattered overhead, wings beating frantic disorder. The world felt about to hinge. Brienne of Tarth's muscles trembled beneath steel as she pressed shield against ladder rungs, guiding her men through a wedge of archers' fire. Arrows rattled against oak, one splintered near her helm, nicking her cheek. She ignored it. Thunderclouds growled overhead, but below her world shone yellow with torch glow and flashing steel. The king's men heaved upward, step by brutal step, while Lannister bolts clipped flesh and wood alike. To her left, Lord Eldon Estermont's standard toppled as a brazier of pitch exploded, showering sparks. A Rainwood sergeant screamed, clutching his face. Brienne bellowed for men to shield him, but their line wavered as boiling pitch cascaded over the parapet. The stones hissed, steam enveloped. Their ladder met the wall. Brienne slammed her shield into the first rung, barked the order. 2 storm guards vaulted up, but a spear jabbed from above flung the foremost back. He tumbled, taking another with him. Brienne surged forward, seized the ladder, began to climb. Her longsword rattled against iron rung. Another arrow zipped, glancing off her pauldron. She ascended, breath steady, eyes fixed upon a narrow, dark gap between crenelles, the space a shield might pry. A gold cloak's helm appeared, plumes sagging with pitch. He thrust downward. Brienne parried, steel shrieking on steel. She pushed, twisting wrist, forcing the blade aside. Another step. The man cursed. Above, someone poured sand, blinding dust cascading. Grains rattled off her gorget. But she kept climbing until gauntleted fingers gripped the topstone. With a grunt, she hauled herself up, sweeping sword crossbody. The gold cloak stumbled. Brienne's boots found purchase on parapet. She pivoted, shield first, hammering him backward into 2 more men. Stone lips of battlement bit her shins, but she leapt inside, shouting war cry. Storm gods surged behind. The parapet erupted into close quarters. Swords clanged at elbows' length, shields smashed faces, spears jabbed through gaps. Brienne ducked a mace, felt wind of its spike. She slammed hilt into attacker's chin, then kicked him over the wall. Below, he howled all the way to muddy ground. Lightning flashed. For out beat all colors inverted. Gold cloaks became pale ghosts. Brienne's blue surcoat rich as night. Thunder rolled seconds later, merging with drums. Rain began, tentative, cold. Steam rose from pitch stones, swirling like wraiths. Brienne cut forward, clearing space for more Baratheon men. They fanned left and right, hacking toward the gatehouse. She glimpsed Renly's antler helm glint beyond inner yard, as Tyrell cavalry rode through the half-open portcullis. The city guard parted before them, as wheat before scythe. Green cloaks swirled, horses snorted. Renly's banner, stag and rose entwined, flashed atop his lance. King's Landing was no longer Lannister red. It turned Baratheon green and storm black in the same breath. Cersei Lannister watched from the Tower of the Hand, knuckles white on balustrade. Rain speckled her perfect curls, running down her cheeks like silent tears she refused to shed. Beneath, the city boiled. Pockets of gold cloaks fighting storm men. Civilians rushing for shelter. Tyrell infantry forming disciplined ranks along the Street of Sisters. Renly's wagons rolled deeper, distributing sacks of meal, even as they sheltered wounded behind makeshift barricades. The Queen could almost hear his honey-smooth promises, carrying on the damp air. Behind her, Sir Osmund Kettleblack hovered, helm under his arm, awaiting orders. 2 Kettleblack brothers flanked Joffrey, who clutched his crossbow but trembled. "Mother," he stammered, "why do they cheer the pretender? They should love me." Cersei forced a smile. "They will, my sweet. They forget themselves amid chaos, but once traitors burn, they will remember." She straightened, voice ironclad. Sir Osmund signaled the pyromancers, all wildfire stores to be hauled to flea-bottom culverts. When the pretender parades past the Dragon Gate, we ignite. No green spares. Let the 7 see judgment. Namzudin. Shiradish Teotisabaduga. Osmund's eyes flicked to Joffrey, then back. "My lady, the hand prohibited." "I am regent," Cersei snapped. "My word is law." Joffrey's face flushed crimson. "I'll be right." "Yes, burn them all, Sir Osmund. Bring me Renly's head, and Stannis, and all who kneel." He aimed the crossbow at nothing, finger twitching. Osmond bowed. As you command. He strode from the terrace. Cersei closed her eyes for an instant. When she breathed out, she felt lighter. Fire would cleanse the walls, scour traitors, carve space for Lannister rule once more. And if half the city perished, well, kingly might demanded sacrifice. Thunder growled overhead. Lightning spidered across the sky, illuminating the Blackwater Gorge. For a moment, the river looked like molten emerald where fire still smoldered on slick patches. Cersei smiled. Let the Baratheon brothers drown in their own color. Deep in the Red Keep's belly, Tyrion confronted the High Septon in a torch-lit corridor slick with humidity. The holy man's robes flapped about his swollen frame, iron keys jangling. I beg you, Lord Hand, he wheezed. The Queen orders wildfire moved through the sept tunnels. The orphanage lies above. Exactly why we stop it, Tyrion said. No casks past the sept's gates. He turned to two burly guards. Bar every corridor that opens from the Dragon Culvert to Cobbler's Way. Post crossbows. Any pyromancer who persists loses fingers. The Septon's jowls quivered. May the Mother bless your mercy. Pray she bless my tongue as well, because I'll need honeyed words to convince my sister not to flay me alive. A runner pelted into view, chest heaving. My lord, Baratheon men inside the Street of Flower, gatehouse lost. Tyrion muttered a curse in High Valyrian he'd learned from Maester Aemon's old tales. Tell Sir Lancel to rally every able sword at the Iron Gate. Hold the inner curtain. I'll handle the Queen. The runner nodded, sprinting off. Tyrion set off in the opposite direction, boots slapping marble. Rain intensified, pattering windows like impatient fingers. He paused at a small side stair overlooking the outer yard. Below, carts of green-rimmed casks rattled toward a sally port, manned by queens, men black with pitch. Wildfire, despite his order, he snarled. Bronn, he bellowed. From Shadow Mystere Arch, Bronn emerged, wiping blood from his dagger. Rats everywhere, little man. Collect a dozen sellswords. Seize those casks before they leave the keep. If the Queen objects, tell her the imp says, bugger the lot. Bronn's grin widened. Steel makes fine punctuation. He vanished down the steps. Tyrion leaned against a cold pillar. His knees shook, but he forced resolve into bones. The city was a tinderbox, soaked in two kinds of fire, alchemists and noble fury. Only cunning kept spark from powder. Night thickened. Rain fell harder, sluicing ash from roofs, dousing smaller fires flickering across the slums. But where wildfire burned, nothing quenched it. Green tongues hissed defiantly through downpour, reflected in puddles shimmering unnatural light. The streets between King's Gate and Fishmonger's Square became a maze of glowing pits, each a tomb for the unlucky. Renly dismounted in the square's center, letting Squires whisk his horse away. His cloak was soaked dark, hair plastered to brow. Around him, Tyrell knights secured perimeter, while Stormlander archers hustled crates of arrows under awnings. The smell of damp wheat and char melded with rain. Brienne arrived at a run, helm dented, face streaked but eyes blazing. Gate and walls secured, my lord. Stannis men hold the parapet southward, ours north. The gold cloaks melted away. No Nadius. Renly clasped her forearm. Well fought, said Brienne. He surveyed the square. We push for the Guildhall at first light. If we hold the House of the Hand, Cersei must treat. Brienne dipped her head. Stannis sends word to coordinate at dawn. His siege towers approach the mud gate in darkness. Wildfire pockets impede progress. Tell him we'll meet on the steps of Baelor. Renly smiled, faint. And tell him I'll bring breakfast. She left swiftly. Renly ran a hand through wet curls and glanced east, where red keep towers loomed crimson-black behind sheets of rain. He felt the city like a trembling animal, skittish, half-tame. It might bolt at sudden flame, or kneel with gentle coaxing. He must choose softness, even as hell boiled at every corner. Loras appeared carrying a scroll sealed with wax. Renly broke it. The parchment bore Stannis' scroll, "Hold fast. I breach Mud Gate by dawn. Trust no watchman but your own. Fires gather under the queen." At the bottom, a second mark. Melisandre's, symmetrical sigil akin to an eye. Renly studied it, uneasy. "We should bed," Loras urged. "Even kings tire." Renly nodded but tucked the scroll inside his cuirass. "Soon, first a walk. I would see people safe. Take a guard. My good knight frets." Renly chuckled. "Very well," Brienne would scold elsewise. He donned riding cloak anew, horns still in Brienne's care, and strode into narrow lanes with 4 Tyrell spearmen at heel. Rain disguised him, no crown, no antlers, only a tall man in mail. They passed shuttered windows, torch posts sputtering. Dogs rummaged for scraps among soggy parchment. A sudden hiss made him halt. From an alley, hooded figures emerged, blades glinting. "Hold," Renly commanded, stepping forward, palm lifted. "I'm Renly Baratheon, here in peace." The nearest figure chortled, an ugly, wet sound. Then died as peace dies. Steel flashed. Spearmen lunged, but black-clad assassins closed in a blur. One Tyrell guard screamed as a stiletto punched his armpit. Another went down under twin slashes. Renly drew sword, parried a thrust, aimed at his gut, pivoted. Thunder boomed overhead. He saw 6 attackers at least, maybe more in shadow. Their robes bore no sigils. One leapt, curved dagger aimed for Renly's throat. He ducked, blade grazing hair, then rammed hilt into assassin's sternum. The man grunted, stumbled. Renly slashed across the face, cheek split. Another attacker drove from right. Renly caught wrist, twisted, dagger fell. He kicked knee sideways, snapping it. Rain made footing slick, bodies slipped. The last guard dropped, throat cut. Renly backed toward wall, breathing hard. 4 assassins remained now, encircling. "Who sent you?" he demanded. They answered in silence, advancing. Lightning strobed. Renly glimpsed tattooed tears on one's cheek. Bravosi. He lunged first, catching a killer mid-step. Sword bit collarbone, stuck. He wrenched free, blood spatter steaming in night air. Another rushed. Renly pivoted, sword singing into ribs. A third slid behind. Renly spun but slipped, knee hitting cobble. Assassin seized moment. Blade plunging. Renly twisted. Steel scraped breastplate but found gap near neck. Pain lanced. He gasped, thrust upward in reflex. Blade punched assassin's gut. Both tumbled. The 4th murderer pressed, dagger descending. Renly's arms tangled in cloak. He braced for sting. Steel flashed from left, severing attacker's forearm. Brienne roared, bulling through rain. Hefting longsword, she cleaved second blow, cutting man nearly in half. She kicked body away, hauled Renly upright. "Wounded?" she barked. "Graze," he croaked, hand to neck. Blood warm but not spurting. Footsteps sounded. More storm guards flooded alley, Loras at their head. He dropped to knees beside Renly. "Lor's shadow, I fear." Renly squeezed hand. "Alive. Assassins unknown." He looked to Brienne. "You followed." She sheathed sword slowly. "Your scroll unsettled me." Renly nodded. "Here, and saved me." He sagged against wall. "Let us quit lanes for lamplight." They moved, guards shielding. Brienne's sword dripped, rain washing blood into rivulets that flowed towards sewer grates. Tiny crimson rivers lost among many. Ye. Melisandre knelt in ankle-deep water at riverbank beneath the burned hulk of Faithful. Rain hammered her scarlet robes until fabric clung like second skin. She paid it no mind. Before her, 6 glass spheres lay arranged upon silver cloth, each filled with smoky shadows swirling slow. The ruby at her throat pulsed in time with the remote thunder. She whispered in Valyrian, syllables older than old Valyria, a mother tongue of fire. The spheres vibrated. One cracked, releasing vapor that curled upward like serpent's breath before a gust carried it across the black water. Another followed, then a third. For each, she murmured a name. Cersei, Pycelle, Joffrey. The shadows drifted, hugging water's surface, unseen by sentries fixated on siege towers. A 7th shadow she kept cupped between hands, smaller, darker. Varys, she breathed. The ruby throbbed. The shadow pulsed. She blew upon it, sending it skimming over waves toward the walls. Lightning split sky. For an instant, black shapes cavorted across water, then vanished into gloom. Melisandre rose, soaked robe, shedding droplets that steamed despite cold. She turned inland where Stannis' tent glowed faintly. Battle raged along 3 gates. The balance wavered like candlewick in drafts. Shadows, though, would tilt scales. Davos Seaworth guided a second wave across hidden skiffs before dawn, heart thumping. The chain still blocked main channel, but they skirted under far western arches of ruined granaries where water ran shallow. Rain masked oar strokes, occasional flare of torch from wall never lingered. They landed beneath a mossy postern long disused, where bricks crumbled around rusted hinges. Davos men pried iron loose, stones cracking under wedges. One hinge gave, the gate sagged. They slipped inside catacomb hallways, redolent of mold. Torchlight probed passage. Rats fled. Davos marched at point. He knew Red Keep tunnels like a map, smugglers' tales, old friend Salladhor San's gossip, his own glimpses delivering onions in Robert's siege. They climbed spiral stairs to a storeroom heavy with dust. Beyond, a corridor led under kitchens where smells of bread lingered. Dawn prodded thin stripes of rose through arrow slits. Davos quickened. Voices echoed ahead. He signaled halt, drew knife, peeked around corner. 2 Lannister guards slouched beneath sconce, arguing about deserters. Davos mouthed wait. Then he stepped out, tossed pebbles left. Guards turned. Davos sprang, knife slashing throat of one before he sounded alert. Another lunged. Davos parried with dagger hilt, kneeing groin, then slit open belly quick. Footmen hauled bodies aside. They pressed deeper until they found a stair ascending directly into the throne room's antechamber. Davos inhaled. If they could unbar the main hall doors, Stannis' foot could storm inside. This could end. He advanced, but a cold whisper swept hair on his neck. In corridor, torchlight stuttered. Shadows stretched wrong, bending toward them. One oily form coalesced like living smoke, dark yet deeper than any black he'd known. It glided across floor. Eyes, if eyes they were, glimmered crimson for heartbeat, then winked out. Thaler shrieked and slashed, blade passed harmless. The shadows slid over him. He convulsed, mouth foaming, then collapsed. Davos shouted for retreat, backing downstairs. Shadow followed, slower than wind, yet inevitable. It brushed another man. He froze mid-step, skin paling, then fell limp. Davos' pulse hammered. Wildfire. He could fight. Men. He could fight. But this... He sprinted, boots slipping. Behind, screams echoed like distant gulls. He burst into dusty storeroom, slammed oaken doors. No lock. He jammed a spear through iron rings, then ran to outer corridors, calling for reinforcements. The first gray of morning seeped beyond the wet horizon when Brienne joined Renly atop the steps of Baelor. They stood among Tyrell pikes, while Stannis' Stormlander vanguard formed opposite, dozens of feet away. Between them lay plaza flagstones slick with rain and scattered bodies. Gold cloaks mostly, their lions etched with soot. Bells had ceased, only patter of drizzle and far-off thunder remained. Stannis approached, flanked by Davos, soaked, pale, bleeding from scratched brow, and Melisandre serene. Renly met brother's gaze. For a long heartbeat no one spoke. Siblinghood and steel stood silent in the hush. Renly broke first. The city bends, but does not break. Offer clemency, they'll accept new rule. Stannis glanced at corpses. Clemency tastes thin where shadows hunt my men within these walls. Renly frowned. Shadows. Davos stepped forward. Strange powers prowl, your grace. I lost good men to something not mortal. Namulair. Melisandre's eyes glowed faint. Only false kings should fear shadows. Renly's hand felt a sword, but Brienne's grip steadied him. He exhaled. Citizens starve and burn. We must secure, keep then. Strike treaty. Else we trade one tyrant for two. Stannis studied him, seeing perhaps Robert's grin tempered by ambition. He sheathed sword. We press together. No sack, no rape. Whoever sets torch is flayed. He turned to captains. Dawn's full light, we ascend the hill. Davos leads through posterns. Renly rides, main promenade. We converge on Maegor's holdfast. Knees. Wah. Renly extended forearm. Stannis clasped. Rain washed blood from bandages as though sealing vow. Miwastri, Simdai. Deep within the tower of the hand, Varys moved like mist through secret passages. His soft shoes made no sound as he descended to a candle-lit chamber of old stone where ravens once nested. A single brazier glowed. On a table sat 3 small casks, marked with the sigil of the Alchemist's Guild. The eunuch's face shone with sweat. 6 barrels of wildfire moved, 3 recovered by the imp, 3 left in limbo. He touched the charred lid of one cask. His whisper trembled. Too much fire in a realm already burning. A chill caressed his bald scalp. He turned. A shadow filled the doorway. Featureless. Tall. Head crowned by something like horns. Eyes glinted red. Varys recoiled, mouth opening, but voice fled. The shadow drifted in. The brazier's flame shrank, stuttering. Varys stumbled, heart pounding loud. No, he gasped. I serve realm. The shadows spread arms like wings. A windless gust snuffed the brazier. Darkness swallowed chamber. When light flickered back moments later, the eunuch lay on floor, eyes staring sightless. The shadow was gone. Thunder cracked as dawn finally tore clouds. Rain slackened. King's Landing's rooftops shimmered wet and broken, smoke curling from sporadic fires. The river's surface steamed where green sorcery still licked timber. Yet banners fluttered new color: crowned stag, golden rose, fiery heart. Lion crimson faded. At Maegor's holdfast gates, Stannis uttered order. Batter. Rams thrust. Oak splintered. Gold cloaks inside hesitated, then threw down arms. The Queen's Guard, mounted desperate, stand upon inner stairs until Brienne barged through, her blade sweeping. So Osmund fell. and cloven. Brothers broke. Brienne slammed the doors to royal apartments. In the Queen's solar, Cersei stood with crossbow loaded, Joffrey cowering behind gown. Tyrion burst in simultaneously with Renly and Stannis at opposite doors. Crossbows shifted between them. Tyrion raised palms. "Sister, drop it." Her laugh was brittle. "So the stag comes for the lion." She aimed at Renly. "Pretty rose stag thinks bread buys crowns." Renly stepped, gentle. "No one need die. I think someone must." She squeezed. Twang. Dot. Bolt flew toward Renly. Brienne hurled herself, shield intercepting. The quarrel ricocheted, embedding in wall. Stannis lunged, seized crossbow wrenching. Cersei clawed. He shoved her. She hit Shays, eyes blazing. Tyrion pulled Joffrey close. "Enough, mother. It's over." Stannis leveled gaze on Boy King, anger yet tempered by something like pity. He turned to Renly. "The realm cannot abide 2 crowns." Renly nodded. "One. Yours, by right." He knelt. "I swore fealty. I keep it." Cersei hissed. "Oath-breaking flower." Renly ignored. Stannis laid a hand on brother's shoulder, eyes softer. Melisandre entered then, ruby blazing bright. "The usurper is cast down," she announced. "Light prevails." Cersei spat. "Witch, Torte." Melisandre smiled. "Your trial awaits fire's light." Tyrion met her gaze, saw a cold furnace. He led Joffrey away, heart heavy yet somehow relieved. No wildfire holocaust, no city ashes, only power rearranged. Shum chimes. Outside, bells rang again. Slow, solemn. Townsfolk poured into squares, gazing at new banners. Renly supervised food distribution. Loras patched wounded. Brienne knelt over fallen Tyrell spearman, whispering Stormlander prayer. Davos stood at parapet, watching clouds part for pale sun. Ships burned still upon river, but far fewer than feared. He exhaled. Long? Perhaps first true breaths since siege began. Stannis emerged onto rampart, gaze over city. Davos stepped near. "It is done, your grace." Stannis nodded. "Done, but not ended. Peace requires forging." "Peace is steel we can temper," Davos said. Stannis looked to him, "and justice is its edge." Below, the people ventured out, timid yet hopeful, as dawn gilded wet cobbles in gold. The Baratheon brothers, once rivals, now uneasy co-regents, would shape their realm in this sunlit hush before new storms brewed. But for one fragile morning, King's Landing breathed amid battered walls, its streets alive with bread smell, and the first uncertain notes of song as minstrels tested strings in broken taverns. Rainwater dripped from eaves, carrying ash to gutters where green embers finally flickered out. Overhead, white gulls circled, crying like heralds of whatever history tomorrow's quills would carve. And unseen within a shadowed chamber far below, a single glass sphere yet untouched by dawn pulsed faintly with smoky promise. One last ember of night, waiting for breath. Nom, Shadin Yashtani. Pale morning sun climbed like a cautious trespasser over the sprawl of King's Landing, gilding broken rooftops, shattered winches, and pools of standing rainwater with tentative light. The air smelled of wet ash and trampled bread crusts. Every alley carried the low murmur of a city, trying to decide whether it had been saved or conquered. In the Red Keep's practice yard, ravens strutted across muddy flagstones, pecking at dropped strips of dried beef, abandoned by sentries too exhausted to keep their rations from scavengers. A single bell tolled from the great sept, not the wild cacophony that had heralded Baratheon victory during the night, but a measured, mournful cadence, each bronze note echoing over the streets, like the heartbeat of someone who had only just survived defeat. On the terrace outside the small council chamber, Renly Baratheon leaned against a parapet slick with dew, breathing in the sharp scent of rain-washed stone. The bandage at his neck itched where the assassin's blade had grazed flesh. But the wound itself barely hurt. What gnawed him was the memory of the shadows Stannis men claimed to have seen, and the cold finality I'd glimpsed in the Red Woman's dark eyes when she'd walked through the holdfast gates in the wake of victory. The city's thrumming uncertainty mirrored the hesitation in Renly's own chest, joy tempered by unease, elation fettered by secrets whispered in corridors that had never known the stamp of his boots until 6 hours ago. Below the terrace, a contingent of Tyrell men drilled beside Stormlander spears, the two lines of soldiers exchanging complicated salutes before pairing off with blunted blades. They moved stiffly. Many still wore their battered mail from the night, the dents barely hammered out, and yet they moved together, not in two companies, but one. Seeing that gave Renly a sliver of confidence. Half the realm might still mutter about the Twin Kings, half might pray to the seven that brothers could truly rule in concert. But for now, swords met shields in harmony, and that harmony carried a promise. If soldiers could adapt in a single night, perhaps hearts could as well. Lord Mace Tyrell emerged from a side door, incongruously festooned in a robe of embroidered sunsets, as if he had prepared for a garden party rather than a war council. He offered a florid bow, mustache trembling. "Your Grace, the throne room is prepared. Maester Pelos and Grand Maester Gorman await with the line of supplicants. You have 2 septons, 3 guildmasters, and a baker from Cobbler's Square seeking personal audience, all swearing fealty." Once, Renly studied distant drills. "And the Queen?" Mace swallowed. "Queen, former Queen. Cersei Lannister takes no food, no water. Her maids say she will not speak. The eunuch still lies cold, and the Hand's Tower is locked under Sir Bronn's watch. The boy king? Lord Tyrion keeps him close, a prudent cage." Renly straightened. "Very well. Tell them the Iron Throne will receive petitions after midday. The city needs the sight of a king who listens." He touched his bandage and offered Mace a thin smile. "And tell the baker to bring tarts this time. We earned them." When the Lord bustled off, Renly lingered until the training yacht emptied, then turned for the corridor. Though Stannis had insisted on equal rule, 2 brothers, 1 crown shared as partners. Circumstance favored the elder. Stannis controlled the keys to the city's gates, and, more importantly, commanded Melisandre's unsettling devotion. Renly felt the balance of power each time he crossed court. Servants bowed to him with polite warmth, yet they flinched when the Red Priestess strode by with that terrible gemstone burning at her throat. She stalked the halls like an omen, and no one, neither Stormlander nor Tyrell, could forget the rumors that swirled around her. Shadows with murdering hands, glass candles that drank breath, a god of fire who demanded sacrifice. At the foot of the Tower of the Hand, Davos Seaworth appeared, hands black with soot, sleeves rolled past bruised elbows. He offered a weary nod. "Your Grace, I've word from the docks. Fisherfolk haul charred timbers from the mouths of the Rush, and every plank's got a story about green ghosts under the water. They swear dragons of emerald fire still swim among the hulls." Renly exhaled. "We must drain the harbor before trade can resume, and the stories will spread like rot," Davos finished. "So long as the slick burns, so will rumors." He glanced behind him, voice lowering. "I'll be plain. Men fear the Red Woman more than wildfire. Many of my own wouldn't step aboard a skiff with her aboard. Talk of shadows from her glass spheres reaches every corner of the keep. Nidholm, Dizedge, or Niwa. Something in Davos' tone, earnest, quietly desperate, cracked Renly's stately composure. He clasped the smuggler's shoulder. "I believe you, and I'll speak with Stannis. No sorcery at council, no riddles while we steady these walls. We rule by justice, not terror." Davos' relief was subdued but unmistakable. "Thank you, Your Grace." They climbed the stairs together. Renly asked after Davos' sons. Davos returned queries about the wound at Renly's throat. For a fleeting minute, they might have been a knightly lord and his loyal retainer, as though daggers in alleys and wildfire on water lay 20 leagues and 20 years away. Yet when they emerged onto the landing before the throne room, the hush there shattered any illusion of normalcy. Stannis waited with Brienne and Sir Loras, their conversation an awkward triangle. Stannis, stern and half impatient. Loras, all iron courtesy. Brienne, standing wary guard beside the twin thrones recently pushed side by side at one end of the hall. Dozens of eyes tracked Renly's approach. Storm guards, Tyrell men, captains of Estermont, Caron, Tarly, Florent. The room smelled of scented rushes, but also of something harsher, as if the stone itself remembered Wildfire's kiss. Before anyone spoke, Melisandre glided into view, silent as dawn's first gleam over a calm sea. Her red skirts trailed along the marble, leaving no sound yet somehow announcing her more loudly than trumpets. Davos stiffened. Loras's fingertips brushed his hilt. Only Stannis seemed oblivious or immune. He regarded his priestess with stoic respect, nothing more. Renly forced his voice level. "Brother, good day. Has the city's muster begun?" Stannis nodded. Courtenay Penrose set scribes to drafting levy rolls. 500 gold cloaks swear direct fealty this morning, 900 desert entirely. The rest flicker like candlelight in drafts. We must bind them fast. He gestured toward the throne dais. 2 chairs stood beneath the high windows. The iron throne, black and barbed, and a newly forged twin of dark oak overlaid in beaten bronze. A simpler seat yet imposing. It gleamed as though hammered only hours before. Indeed, men had labored through the night forging it under torches. Renly felt a strange weight press on his ribs at the sight. Partnership shaped in metal, yes, but metal could be melted and recast. Stannis spoke. "The city must see us together. Noon, from the steps of Baelor's Sept. Joint proclamation. Our banners unite, our laws one. Afterward, justice. Beginning with Lannister trials." Renly dipped his chin. "Agreed. And after justice, mercy. The river folk need grain, the Septons need balm. We cannot win hearts by gallows alone. Wow. A king who forgets justice for bread wins neither," Stannis said, but the words held less edge than Renly expected. Perhaps last night's horror had tempered him. Perhaps Davos' pragmatism whispered in the back of his mind. Perhaps Renly dared hope he and his brother had both stepped through wildfire and shadow into something new. A realm where rule did not equal ruin. Melisandre's low voice flowed like warm wine. Justice is mercy when tempered by light. The Lord's fires cleanse. Davos cleared his throat. "Cleansing can wait for harvest, my lady. People need roofs and nets before sermons." Those simple words might have sparked sharper quarrels, had Stannis not lifted a hand. "Enough. There's work to do." He turned to Brienne. "Sir, you'll escort Queen Regent Cersei to the Sept at dawn tomorrow. She answers charges of treason and attempted kinslay. Dolores, your Knights of the Reach hold the gate of the gods. Examine all incoming wagons. No Lannister coin passes into the city. To Davos, secure river salvage. I want every hull patched or scuttled before Tywin learns his daughter's prison lacks a navy. No powder." Orders cast, Stannis strode toward the dais, ascended, and seated himself on the iron throne with a sharp rustle of mail. Renly followed and lowered onto the bronze seat. Silence filled the hall as courtiers stared at two crowns, gleaming side by side. The sprawl of blades behind, like a metallic storm frozen mid-gust. When Renly at last looked up, he found Stannis watching him. In those blue eyes he saw not challenge, not resentment, but something akin to weary gratitude. In that moment, the brothers might have been boys again, atop the Sea Dragon Tower, parapets at storm's end, daring each other to leap across the parapet gap, though the drop meant broken limbs, if not death. They both jumped then, clearing the space by a whisper. They had lain panting on the roof slates and laughed until the world spun. Renly felt the ghost of that fierce laughter now, and wondered whether across all these years and quarrels, they had simply leapt another gap, dangerous, foolhardy, but perhaps survivable so long as they landed still touching. Three floors below, Tyrion Lannister paced a narrow prisoner's walkway, the barred windows before him looking out over the steep drop toward the king's. His stride was uneven. His mangled knee from Blackwater Bay's shrapnel plagues him anew. Beside him stalked Bronn, free-sword at hip, despite the highborn guards who now patrolled every second sconce. When they reached the cell that had once served as a storage closet for dusty tabards, they halted. The closed door of rough oak had been reinforced by two fresh iron bands. From within came the occasional thud of boot against stone, or perhaps a fist slapping the straw mattress. Bronn rapped once. "Your, Grace, you still breathing?" A high-pitched snarl erupted. "When my nightly guard returns, you'll choke on your own bones, sellsword. I am the king." Tyrion smiled mirthlessly. "Indeed, nephew. A cell's still a kingdom if the prisoner's mad enough." He fished a key from his doublet. The jailer at the stair tensed but did not protest. Tyrion still bore the livery of acting hand, and the Baratheons had not stripped him of the title yet. He unlocked the portal, cracked it enough to speak through the gap. Joffrey crouched in the gloom, golden hair tangled, eyes red-ringed from sleepless fury. The boy's once-Eric doublet of crimson velvet was wrinkled and crusted with tears. He clutched a makeshift dagger, a filing pin from some cell furniture, sharpened on the stone until its tip glittered like a sewing needle. "Put that down," Tyrion instructed. "No one's here to kill you." "Lies," Joffrey spat. "Renly wants my head. So does Stannis. They'll hack off my crown and mount it over the gates." Tyrion cocked his head. "If they wished you dead, they'd feed you to the green fires already. Instead, they feed you stew twice daily and allow me to check your wounds. They want a hostage, my boy, not a corpse." Joffrey's lip curled. "I'm not your boy. You're a twisted little imp who'll die screaming." Bronn drew half his sword before Tyrion raised a hand. "Leave us," he told the sellsword quietly. Bronn tapped the doorframe once, shrugged, and sauntered off. Tyrion stepped fully into the cell, closing the door behind him with a soft click. Joffrey tensed, muscles taut as drawn bowstring, but Tyrion ignored the threatening stance and sat on the edge of the cot, the only furniture besides a chamber pot and a small wooden stool. "I understand rage," Tyrion said gently. "I've lived with it since I first saw my father's eyes after Mother bled out giving me breath. Rage can fuel you, keep you upright when grief would buckle your knees, but let it master you, and it shrinks your world until a straw mattress becomes a capital, and vengeance the only law." Joffrey's small shoulders trembled. "They'll burn us all. Mother said so. She said Lannisters never yield." "Mother also said fishermen smelled worse than tanners," Tyrion noted. "Yet when wildfire burnished the harbor, it was fishermen who rowed children to safety on their little skiffs." The boy's eyes filmed, confusion warring with defiance. So what? What am I to do? Live, Tyrion said simply. Live, learn, endure, perhaps even rule again one day, though not from those thrones up there. A king is more than a chair of swords. He inhaled. Renly and Stannis will offer terms. Accept them with honor. They will strip your banners, yes, but also shield your name from the gallows. There is dignity in that. I will plead for you. Why? Joffrey whispered. Because Tywin would haunt me if I did not, Tyrion answered, surprising himself with how much truth lay in those words. And because a child should not answer for every sin of his kin. Joffrey's grip on the makeshift dagger loosened. He lowered it slowly, then raised his chin. Fine, you plead. I'll speak with them. Tyrion nodded. Good. He stood, feeling the old wound flare. I'll return this evening. He reached the door, paused. One more thing. Speak gently to the guards. They fear you still have the Queen's wildfire secrets. Assure them you do not. The boy blinked. I don't. Precisely, but fear twists facts. Ease their minds. When Tyrion left, closing the door softly, he felt no triumph. Only a dull ache, halfway resentment, halfway relief. The game had moved on. He no longer sat any closer to the center than the poorest ratacatcher who crept among the maester's kennels. Yet the pieces remained his to nudge. If only he could keep all the steely hands from sweeping the board. At midday, thousands gathered outside the great sept of Baelor. Despite the lingering drizzle, small folk filled the marble steps and spilled onto the surrounding streets, many clutching loaves pressed from Renly's grain. Some dangled makeshift Baratheon sigils fashioned from scrap cloth. The high windows of the sept gleamed wet, tiny rainbows forming where sun struck beads upon the glass. Septus whispered to orphans, shepherding them closer so they might glimpse the kings and believe again in something larger than fear. A procession parted the crowd. Stannis on a tall black destrier, Renly atop a palomino whose mane had been braided with green ribbons. Davos rode behind, a humble smear of weathered cloak amid the polished ranks of Tyrell, Florent, and Stormlander banners. Melisandre walked, a striking red spark, barefoot upon wet stone, rivulets streaming between her toes. Some murmured at that, awed or uneasy. Others crossed themselves, muttering prayers to the Seven to keep Yaralor at bay. On the sept steps, the High Septon, plucked hastily from half-retirement only hours before, raised gnarled hands. His voice quavered yet carried by dint of careful diction. Peoples of Westeros, behold the true-born brothers Baratheon, united to restore peace beneath the gods' watchful eye. No longer shall lion devour stag, nor stag gore stag, but together they shall guard the realm from ice, from fire, from shadow. No Shan. Renly eased his horse forward first, his words pitched to carry. I swear by the warrior to protect the weak, by the father to judge with fairness, and by the mother to spare where I might. He dismounted, approached the septon, and kissed the seven-pointed star upon the old man's sleeve. The crowd rippled with soft approval. Stannis followed. His vow was shorter, voice like gravel ground underfoot. I swear truth, I swear law. I swear no shadow of doubt shall dim the realm's justice. Where Renly bent, Stannis knelt, but only briefly, rising before his soaked cloak dragged the marble. The septon blessed him with trembling hand. United, they turned to the throng. Renly's clarion tone, let it be known that Robert's sons shall live unmolested, given wards quarters at Storm's End until their manhood. Let it be known that House Lannister's crimes rest upon those who conceived them, not upon every soul who bore the lion's banner. None lives. Stannis' voice flintier. Let it be known that Sir Jaime Lannister shall answer for the murder of King Aerys, and for the attack upon my lord hand, Eddard Stark. He stands trial when we secure River Run and the Riverlands, where his blade has drawn blood anew." That pronouncement stirred more contentious murmurs. Lannister sympathizers traded worried glances, while Northmen, few yet present among the crowd, nodded grim satisfaction. Finally, Renly called, "Let bread flow again and trade resume. As long as the realm feeds its children, no tyrant may flourish." He drew his sword, lifted it high. Rain droplets cascaded from the edge, scattering as sun broke fully from behind clouds, crowning the blade in sudden brilliance. The roar that followed rolled like thunder, bright and sustained. Inside the Septi's vestibule afterward, as the crowd's echo faded, Stannis met Renly's eye. "Well spoken." Renly wiped rain from his lashes. "You feared I might promise them all your iron bed." Stannis' mouth twitched in something not quite a smile. "An iron bed is sturdy, but not soft. You supply the pillows." They moved down a side hall, wet boots squeaking on tiles. Melisandre followed, but Davos intercepted her at the threshold. "Forgive me, my lady," he murmured. "The kings confer in private." She tilted her head as if to argue, but his gaze, bolstered by quiet resolve, held hers. At last she inclined her head and slipped, like crimson smoke, into a pew, hands folding as though to pray. The High Council that afternoon convened in Maegor's Holdfast's war room, a circular chamber whose walls were hung with tattered banners captured during Robert's rebellion. Candles sputtered in iron sconces. A new map of the kingdoms, stitched hastily by scribes overnight, lay upon the table, colored pins marking uncertain frontiers. Storm clouds thickened again outside, muting the light, so that the witch flame of sconces seemed half alive. Lord Randall Tarly stood over the map, jaw clenched. Tywin Lannister rides from Harrenhal already. South say 6,000 cavalry at least. If he veers south, he'll link with Marbrand's survivors and smash what remains of our fleet along the Blackwater. Sir Loras leaned on the opposite side of the map, and if he rides west, then River Run falls within a fortnight, Tarly replied. Edmure Tully cannot stand another siege. Renly folded arms. Tywin rides east. Pride hungers for his lion's standard atop these gates. We must break him on the Gold Road and finish what Wildfire began. Stannis tapped the pin marking King's Landing. We have 11,000 foot fit for march, fewer than half armored. Our knights lost horse and harness in yesterday's blaze. Highgarden can resupply. Mace Tyrell boom. I'll send riders to Bitterbridge. My granaries overflow. Davos interjected, voice measured. Granaries feed armies, true. Yet ships bring salt, fish, and iron. Our river is clotted with wrecks. Until the harbor clears, King's Landing starves by winter. Silence passed over the chamber like a cold draft. Stannis traced a finger along the Rosarat. Then we hold here, rebuild navy, and let Tywin smash against walls. Walls breached by Wildfire. Renly countered. The Mudgate stones are half glass. One trebuchet could collapse them. A siege-starved city faster than Tywin starves outside. We must meet him in the field, north of the Blackwater, before his host triples. Brienne, who had stood unspeaking by the door, cleared her throat. If your graces permit, a smaller force could harry his outriders. Slow him enough for engineers to shore the gate. Stannis regarded her with frank interest. You'd command it, if it pleases your grace, she answered, bowing. Loras raised brows. My lady has fought since dawn. Give her rest. Brienne's gaze held his. Rest breeds rust. I have strength yet. Renly rested a hand on her broad shoulder. Then take 500 storm spears and 700 Tyrell outriders. Make Sir Aemon Cua your second. Hit Tywin's foragers. Burn fodder. Avoid pitched battle. She knelt. It will be done. Her blue cloak, newly stitched with a crowned stag within a golden rose, spread across the stones as she rose and strode out. When the council adjourned an hour later, Stannis lingered behind as scribes cleared parchments. Renly watched from the doorway until only the two of them remained in candlelight. "Something weighs you," Renly said. Stannis' gaze drifted to a tattered griffin banner hanging from a lance on the wall. "Griffin's roost, sacked ages ago. The Red Woman speaks of dragons across the sea. She says they ride on wings of shadow, stirring ancient powers." Renly suppressed a sigh. Dragon queens belong to songs. "Yet wildfire burst like new dragons yesterday," Stannis murmured. "And shadows walked stone corridors. Davos swears it." Renly could not deny the assassin's steel that nearly pierced his throat. Shadows or blades, men still bleed. We cope with flesh before phantoms. He clasped Stannis' wrist. "Come, brother. We promised the realm dawn. Let us not chase night." Stannis searched his face as though looking for boyhood bravado once more. "Very well, but promise me, when the night roars, you'll not mock me for flint and prayers." "I will stand beside you," Renly answered, sword and shield. Stannis gave the barest nod. "Then a dawn. Keep us honest." South of Maidenpool that evening, a party of riders thundered along the Roserad, cloaks snapping in wind that carried the scent of sea salt and charred trees. The leader wore crimson surcoat, bearing a rampant lion, though soot dulled the embroidery. Seada Marbrand rided beneath a half-shattered signpost, examining the direction markers hacked by Stormlander's scouts. Behind his column of 200 cavalrymen shifted impatiently. They had ridden almost without pause since dawn, chasing rumors. Dragons on the Blackwater, brothers in alliance, wildfire storms that melted ships like candles. A rider galloped up the track, one of Marbrand's scouts. Mud flecked his visor, breath sprayed in cold puffs. "Sir, fresh sign west of here. Baratheon outriders, 200 at least, maybe more, headed north along the foothills, burning fodder as they go." Marbrand's jaw flexed. "Harry us, they want to starve our horses." He turned to his second, a lean knight named Sir Morden. "Dispatch ravens to Lord Tywin. Enemy light cavalry, dogging flanks. We require a crossbow wagon and fresh mounts from Crackclaw." Morden saluted. "At once." Marbrand studied the darkening horizon. Distant lightning forked. Somewhere beyond those hills lay the capital, once bastion of lion pride, now defiled by staghorns. He pictured Cersei, golden hair matted by storm, her laugh turned acid. He pictured Joffrey, kneeling before the sword of a usurper. Fury churned in his gut. "To horse," he barked. "We ride by moon. Find those harriers. Draw them into the bogs where each horse's founder. We'll clip their wings. Men." And so the night birthed new hunts, old grudges clad in fresh armor. War, though seemingly decided on the Blackwater's banks, had merely shed one skin to slip into another. Far to the north, at River Run's candlelit solar, Catelyn Stark listened to Ryman Frey enumerate casualties from the skirmish near Pink Maiden Castle. She heard his words yet barely tasted their meaning. Her thoughts drifted south toward King's Landing, toward her daughters, whose fates hung in the balance of two kings she had once believed would overturn one another. Now they sat side by side. Would that union offer Sansa and Arya a path home? Or would it forge a blade more keenly pointed at Robb's heart? When Ryman finished, Catelyn rose, dismissed the quarter lords, and walked the balcony overlooking the tumblestone. Moon rippled silver across restless water, and in its reflection she saw not peace but questions. What if Stannis and Renly pressed north once Tywin bled? Would they honor alliances, or would lords named Stark become inconvenient? She wrapped shawl tight, whispering to the night air, "Old gods, new gods, guard my son." The river answered with ceaseless whisper, secret and indifferent. "Woman please." In the Red Keep's dungeons, Cersei Lannister sat on a narrow stone bench, back rigid, eyes fever-bright. Chains shackled her slender ankles, yet her hands remained unbound. She had demanded that small dignity, and surprisingly, the guards had honored it. She rolled a pale oval object across her fingers, a gemstone once set in a ring Tywin gifted her on her 12th name day, pried loose during capture. She traced its cut edges as though each facet might yield salvation. Footsteps approached. She hid the gem within her sleeve. Door clanged open to reveal Melisandre, bearing only a single candle, its flame burning straight and untroubled despite dungeon drafts. The Red Priestess peered inside, expression unreadable. Cersei curled a lip. "Come to gloat. Come to offer light," Melisandre replied softly. "Carry it away." "I prefer darkness to your sorcery." Melisandre stepped forward. Candle glow painted her features gold, ruby gleaming at her throat. Darkness is patient. One day, shadows will claim all things, but the Lord of Light chooses vessels to delay that night. "No, D," Cersei barked, a bitter laugh. "Then he chooses poorly, a smuggler's son and a lord's whore? How noble." Melisandre did not flinch. Choice often surprises the chosen. The night I was sold to Ashai, my life ended yet began anew in flame. She lifted the candle, wax dripped but cooled before touching her skin. "Would you be reborn, lioness?" Cersei's fingers tightened around the hidden gem. "I'll be avenged, witch, that's all." Her gaze flicked to the hallway beyond. No jailer waited. Melisandre must have dismissed them. Foolish. She slid the gem between knuckles, gauging distance. Melisandre regarded her a moment, then extinguished the candle with a whisper. Total blackness enveloped them. Cersei froze, breath trapped. She sensed movement, felt heat pass before her face like a fluttering wing. Then light bloomed red inside the ruby, casting faint silhouettes, shelves, straw, a woman clothed in darkness. "You are fire," Melisandre murmured, "but chained flame starves. Accept the Lord's truth and burn bright once more." Cersei's voice emerged hoarse. "Release me, and I'll show you flame." The ruby's glow dimmed. Melisandre's shape receded. The dungeon door squealed shut. Darkness swallowed the cell again, yet Cersei's pulse thundered, forging fury into resolve. She touched the gemstone's facets, sharp as dragon glass, she realized, and tucked it under her tongue until the right moment. Outside the door, Melisandre returned the candle to flame with a breath. She lifted it, eyes thoughtful. The lioness's shadow lay long behind iron bars, and shadows could serve if shaped. Lightning forked across King's Landing sky in the deep hours before dawn, illuminating scaffolds already rising around the shattered mud gate. Hammers rang a halting rhythm. Men passed buckets of mortar, while others hauled charred planks away. Overseeing them stood Ser Gendry Rivers, Edric's half-brother, newly knighted for valor in river rescue. Rain sheeted from his oiled cloak. He issued curt orders, his rough smith's hands guiding noble laborers unused to such toil. Davos approached, lantern flicking. "Poashili, Ser Gendry," he greeted. "How fare your masons?" "Stubborn as nails," Gendry replied, voice low but steady. "They want more lime. Stores depleted. I'll requisition from the city guild. Stannis promised open purses for repair." Gendry nodded, but his gaze lingered on the broken steps where a trio of charred corpses still awaited burial. "Make sure purses open faster than graves close," said Davos. A fresh peal of thunder rolled. Davos clasped the young knight's arm. Your father would be proud. I was my father's bastard, Gendry said quietly. Now my fathers are two kings. It is complex. Norman, under thee. Davos chuckled despite bleakness. Aye, lad, realms and hearts both, but this wall. He tapped a cracked stone. You mend one joint at a time, same for kingdoms. He offered a final squeeze, then trekked into drizzle, lantern bobbing like a lone star. On the parapet above, Renly watched that light until it blurred with tears he did not recall shedding. Perhaps it was only rain on lashes. He turned, found Stannis studying a scroll by torch flare. A letter from Dragonstone, he guessed, or from the wall where ravens carried colder warnings. Without a word, Renly extended a wineskin. Stannis hesitated, then drank. Mother always favored you, Stannis said suddenly. Renly blinked. She favored laughter. I laughed easier. Stannis' sigh was almost wistful. Father favored duty. I became its image, but father also favored whomever mother loved, and mother loved you, so perhaps I envied what I could not earn. A strange hush settled. Rain softened, thunder retreating. Renly leaned arms upon the parapet beside him. We stand here because we shared envy, fear, and fire. Let us share more. Not nearly. Stannis regarded the city below, its pain and promise. We share a crown, for now that will do. It was a small concession, but Renly accepted it, letting silence speak the rest. Together they watched workers fit a new cornerstone, shaping the future one strike at a time. Far beyond, Tywin Lannister's banners marched closer with every hoofbeat, and darker rumors, dragons on the Dothraki Sea, undead stirring in northern snows, mustered like storm clouds where horizon met night. Yet here, upon Whetstone, still warm from loosed wildfire, two brothers who once would have gladly slit each other's throats, instead shared breath in the quiet. Sometimes that is how dawn begins, not with songs or sunrise, but with two stubborn shapes refusing to let the other fall. As the horizon paled, Renly murmured, "Remember that day, atop storm's end, when we leapt the gap?" Stannis' lips almost curved. "I remember the stew you spilled when mother called you into supper after. We both thought we'd die if we slipped. We still might," Stannis said softly. Renly smiled. "Then we hold tight until the slate's steady." Together. Below, the cornerstone slid into place. Mortar spattered, hammers chimed, and King's Landing, scarred, smoky, stubborn, continued its slow, fragile ascent from night's long shadow toward a dawn of uneasy promise.